On today's episode of Healthy Looks Great on You podcast, I have a very special guest, and her name is Kathi Lipp. But I have to start by telling you that I actually met her on a podcast because I was listening to Writing at the Red House, and she started talking about having a retreat at that time, what was a vacation home way out in the El Dorado forest. And I immediately signed up to go and spend the week with someone that I only knew on a podcast.
I'm Dr. Vickie Petz Casper. I practiced obstetrics and gynecology for 20 years until I landed on the other side of the sheets as a very sick patient. When my own body betrayed me, I took a handful of pills to manage my disease and another handful to counteract the side effects. My health was out of control. Through surgery, medications, and lots of prayers, I regained my strength only to face another diagnosis. My doctor challenged me to make radical changes through lifestyle medicine. Now I feel great and I want to help you make changes that make a difference. Healthy Looks Great on You podcast takes you to many medical schools so you can learn the power of lifestyle medicine. If you're ready to take control of your health, you're in the right place. Whether you're focused on prevention or you're trying to manage a condition, I'll give you practical steps to start your own journey toward better health, because healthy looks great on you.
So, Kathi Lipp, I am so thrilled that you're here
Well,
today.
you didn't just come to one retreat. You just celebrated your fifth retreat with the same gang of girls the whole time. It's amazing.
And it's such a special group. We call it the Red House Effect because of the way that we have all connected. And that is the main reason that I wanted to have you on the podcast today, is because you are an expert on connection.
Wow.
And social connectedness is such a part of lifestyle medicine, and so many people struggle with loneliness.
It's true. And you know what? I'm going to be totally honest with you. It's something that Roger, my husband, who you know really well, and I have struggled with up here, and we've had to be super intentional about it. So, yes, even though I may be an expert on it, it means I still have to work at it.
Well, most people who are an expert on something have had to work through it themselves,
Right.
right? But set the scene about the Red House, first of all. Can you just let our listeners know what it's like to be there, to live there, and how you came up with the idea for your newest book, which is Sabbath Soup?
So several years ago, Roger and we love to go to the mountains to kind of get away and to write and to work and do all of that kind of stuff. And we started praying about, could we get a little tiny cabin in the woods for us to be able to do that? And then, as dreams often do, it got out of control. And we ended up buying the house with the intent of living in San Jose, coming to the mountain, Airbnb-ing this place, and then also doing writer's retreat. Well, every time we came here, we didn't want to leave. So we eventually sold our house in San Jose and moved up here full time. And so we have a much bigger house than we could ever use, but we're able to use it in different ways, like the retreats, and we can have guests here. We've had people who have been in the midst of a crisis come and stay with us. So the house gets used in ways that we never imagined. And we just feel very lucky that we get to live here.
That's awesome. And how far away is your nearest neighbor?
It's about a 20 to 25-minute walk, depending on who's doing the walking. So we have two neighbors. We have Paul on one side of us, and we have Nancy and Patrick on the other side. And it's a hike. It's a hike, but we've had to make really deliberate attempts to be able to be connected with people when you don't run into somebody going out for a gallon of milk. That's just not what our lives are like here.
Yeah, I love that though, because I think, again, so many people do struggle with connection and loneliness. And they're like, well, it's hard for me because, and it was hard for you
Yeah.
because, but you found a way to overcome that. And a lot of it revolved around meals.
Yeah. So we had the Caldor fire come through our county, and We only lost 2 acres out of we have multiple acres here, and it didn't touch our home, but one of the reasons that our home was saved was because of the volunteer firefighters who live on both sides of us. And, at all those firefighters are living together, they're sleeping together, they're eating together. Well, this was at the height of the COVID pandemic, and, Paul got COVID and was in the intensive care unit. It was really, really bad. When he got out, I'm like, could I bring you some soup? And come to find out, if I didn't bring him soup, he was going home to Lunchables. Like that's what he ate. And so I said, oh, we can do better than that. So we've just started to bring him meals every week, kind of out. I'm used to cooking for six, Vicki. We were a blended family of six, and you don't lose those muscles really quickly when you're cooking for a crowd. And so, we bring him meals. And just yesterday, we brought Nancy and Patrick meals because they're going through a health crisis. And we just know, to show up with food takes one burden off of them and is a very low and easy connection point for people.
It really is. And I think people associate soup with health
Yeah.
anyway. I asked listeners on Facebook this week, what's your comfort food? And so many people said soup. And I was like, yes,
Yes.
that's the right answer.
Jack.
I mean, it's chicken soup, but there's so many other soups. And I got to feast on them when I was there. And I guess it just makes you feel warm inside. And it's a big pot that you share with people. There's so much about soup that just screams connection.
It really does. And, I found that the easiest way to reach out to somebody, a neighbor, a friend, a coworker, is to just say this simple line: I made too much soup. Can I bring some over? And it's such a low risk way of reaching out. It's also a low risk way of receiving. Because I think we're very hesitant to receive from strangers, like, or, even people we don't know really well, because it's like, what are they going to want from me? Are they going to try to recruit me for X, Y, their multi-level marketing system or their religion? And to just say, no, I just care about you. And soup's a really easy way of doing that.
That is so awesome. Well, tell us a little bit more about Sabbath soup.
Yeah. So, Roger and I have really been on a journey. I think, when you kind of pull away from some of the hustle, I mean, we're from Silicon Valley. So hustle was built into what we were doing. And when you kind of pull away from that, you start to see maybe I haven't had some of the healthiest habits. As you know, I've been on a weight journey and a food journey, and those have been going really well. But one thing that I was not doing great at, couple of things: rest and stress management. And I've you can go live in the middle of the forest like Roger and I do. And if you're not intentional about those things, they can continue to be not great for you. So we really got intentional about Sabbath, about saying, hey, there's this day set aside for rest. And so you can't just say, oh, we're resting on Sunday, everything stops. Like people still want to eat. It's very annoying. And so to spend a little bit of each day preparing so that Sunday can be taken off. And the reason it's soup is because if you make a soup on Friday or Saturday, one, it's the easiest thing in the world to reheat. And two, soup tastes better after a couple of days. It just does. So that's why we got into the habit of having soup on Sundays.
So that's your routine
Every
Sunday.
Sunday. And here's the beautiful thing for those of us who are overwhelmed, Vicki, if you say, I'm having soup on Sunday, your decisions go from infinity to about 25. Like most of us know of about 25 soups that we like and we could make. Soup is pretty simple to make. And if you are overwhelmed by decision making, just saying, okay, Sunday soup, and then I add a salad, even if it's a bag salad, I don't care. And by the way, if your soup needs to come from Costco or the grocery store, yes, do what you need to do. There are a lot of busy people who are like, I can't even think about cooking. Um, if you just make the decision soup, like if that's your decision, the next time you go to the store, you pick up a couple of containers, you're buying yourself some pre-decision, some taking away some anxiety about what am I going to feed these people or myself.
That's so good because you've mentioned so many pillars of lifestyle medicine, rest and stress management. And I mentioned that this is all part of social connectedness, but also nutrition.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you what I did the other day. I did not want to go to the grocery
Yeah.
store. I had been traveling a lot. I had been to see you,
Yeah.
as a matter of fact, at the paper room. I didn't have a lot of groceries. And I literally went into the pantry and found what I could find in the pantry and in the freezer. And I threw it all in a big pot with some vegetable broth. And I made a bean and corn and fire roasted tomatoes. And I put my secret ingredient that my husband really loves, and that's just a little bit of cloves with beans.
Oh,
Cloves with beans. That's my secret.
ah,
And he loved it. And I took some leftovers to my mom. And so you're right. He goes, I mean, he makes soup for two.
no,
You really don't cook for two.
no. And okay, there are so many things I want to respond to there. One, wouldn't we agree that for so many people in North America, one of the biggest stressors is finances? And soup is such a beautiful way of using up those odds and ends. Beans are so inexpensive. And I'm going to try your cloves because I can taste that in my mouth right now. The beans and the cloves. That's amazing. I love it. Because also I like some cinnamon sometimes with bean. And so that's great. And, uh, I love soup because it's very easy to make a big batch of. It's so easy to share like you did with your mom, but it's so easy to freeze. I love these things called super cubes, SOUPER cubes, that are just silicone molds to freeze portions of soup in. And we call that homesteader fast food, where you can just pop out one of those cubes, heat it up in the microwave, and you've got lunch. And I think about it like this, every once in a while, we like to go to fast food. We're Americans. We like to do that. But for the two of us to go to fast food is $30, and which is nice for a treat, but leftover soup is pretty much free. And so economically, nutritionally, community wise, it works on all levels.
It really does. And beans in particular, they're so high in fiber, so high in protein, and they're inexpensive. You can do them out of a
Yeah,
can, and they're also just as healthy as they are any other way. You got to watch the sodium
right.
content, but also you can do them in the Instant Pot, and you don't have to soak them overnight and do all that business.
Vickie, they are very blue zone. They are very, very blue zone.
Yes, they are. Well, what's your favorite soup recipe in the new book, Sabbath Soup? Do you have one? Because I do.
Okay. So I would say probably when I want to be a little decadent, the tomato and gin soup, which has a bacon base, is that's my favorite, like special occasion. Everybody loves it. Love it. What's yours?
The same.
Oh,
That
okay.
was so I love it. And like I said, that would be for a sort of a treat occasion, but I love tomato soup anyway. And that tomato soup recipe was delicious. Absolutely love it.
Okay, Vickie, when the next time you need a treat and you want to double up on your treat, there's no more classic combination of tomato soup and grilled cheese sandwiches, right? Which has nothing redeeming about it. Let's just be super honest, except joy, joy. And in the book, I have a recipe for Cuban sandwiches that's like a grilled cheese sandwich on steroids. It's so, so, so good. So if you want something like, I know you have a grandson and your kids, and if they were coming over and you wanted to do something kind of decadent, it's a real crowd pleaser.
That's awesome. And I love a pickle with my grilled
It,
cheese sandwich.
that's what the Cuban sandwich is all about, is the pickle. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I want our listeners to know all about your book and where they can find you and the book, because it is a gorgeous book and it is full of so many good recipes.
They really did a beautiful job on it. So if you go to sabbathsuit.com, We have a lot of little gifties there for you, some menu plans, some other bonuses you can do. But you can buy Sabbath Soup at Amazon and any place you love to buy books, you can buy it there. It's available everywhere.
And I will put the link to your website and all of the links to that in the show notes because I know people are going to want to check that out. But I love just the connection that's involved with food and with soup in particular.
Yeah. I always think about it this way, Vickie. I've never been fed without feeling love. And I was just at an interview yesterday and they talked about how God created us with the need for food. God didn't need to do that, but God is invested in our connection and our joy. And that's what food does.
That's so true. And I think eating a meal without someone to share it with magnifies your loneliness.
Yeah.
And I went through a singleness, and I always said I ate a dinner for one at a table for 10,
Mhm.
and it just magnifies the fact that you're alone. And my father passed away about 3 years ago. And so my mom's had to eat her meals alone, and it's difficult for her to go to the table and do that.
Yeah.
And so I take her my leftovers, but how beautiful that just to show up at your neighbor's door and say, "Hey, I made too much soup, and would you like to have some?" I love that.
Yeah. And I love what you said there. Show up. Don't ask, what can I do? Just say, hey, I made you some soup. What time can I bring it over that works for you? It's such a different because nobody wants to put anybody else out. But when you say it's already done, it brings a different level of connectedness. You're absolutely right.
And even better, stay and eat with me.
Yes.
I
Yes.
remember when I was first sick and people would bring me meals, and a lot of times it wasn't anything I could eat. The pregnancy I had made me diabetic, and I had to be very, very careful what I ate. And me, I'm sort of a health nut anyway.
Mhm.
And so I was careful about what I ate. So what I really wanted was for them to stay,
Yeah.
eat, and eat with me, but to stay and visit. So, it's not something that you drop off on the doorstep and ring the doorbell and run away. If you can stay and visit, that's the decadent cream on top.
Yeah, and I think asking, Roger went to visit our neighbors yesterday and there was a nurse there and it just wasn't a great time. So Roger said, I'm going to call you later to find out when a good time would be. And it's like, you're there to serve somebody's need. And that is the deep connection, seeing that need. And it's like, do they need to be left alone or do they need that connection and being sensitive that which they're letting you know about? And it's such a gift to the receiver to let them know, even if now doesn't work, later on will. And we're going to be back. We're in this for the long haul.
Well, anything else you want to tell us about the book or your wonderful place? I love the Red House so much.
Oh, we love having you here. And Roger was so excited. He built the path around here because we're trying to get out and walk more and more. And he was so excited to show it to you guys and for you guys to be a part of that because he thinks about you as we're building these things. I think the thing I would say is even if it's not soup, if you can just make a decision for one day a week in advance what you're going to eat and one, make it a little special and two, make it easy on yourself. It's going to create a rhythm in your life that is going to be life-giving.
That's so true. My husband thrives on a rhythm like
Sure.
that. And so we sort of do the same thing every Friday night and the same thing every Sunday night. And it's just relaxing to me because we don't have to talk about it.
Right.
We don't have to decide anything. We don't have to plan anything. We know what we're doing.
Yes.
And so we said, if it's just one day a week, I think it just takes a burden, especially if someone has to feed a family.
Sure. Yeah,
It just takes the burden.
absolutely.
Well, there are tons of recipes in this book. I'm excited. It's a beautiful book just to even have sitting in your kitchen. So thank you so much for being here.
Vickie, it's such an honor to see, everything you've started with this podcast and now to be a guest. It just feels like such a full circle moment. And I'm so proud of you. And I love what you're doing to serve your community. It's just awe inspiring.
Well, thank you so much. It was great having you.
The information contained in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not considered to be a substitute for medical advice. You should continue to follow up with your physician or healthcare provider and take medication as prescribed. Though the information in this podcast is evidence-based, new research may develop and recommendations may change.